That would be great. How do I display keyboard input on screen? Oh, well, that's not useful. Ugh, I could do the on-screen keyboard for now. Nope, that doesn't work. Oh, it does. Can I make that smaller? Can you all see that? It also doesn't work because it shows the controls, but it doesn't show. Like, I'm hitting Control A right now, and it's not showing it. Okay, I'll figure it out before the next class, hopefully. But that's a good idea. Okay, so when you open 3ds Max, you will have this four screens, and what these four screens are if I make something really, they show me a front view, top view, left view of the model. Now, a lot of people like having that. I personally don't, and it's completely up to you. But if you don't, what you can do is select one of the screens that you want and hit this little button, and that will pop out that screen to the max. And if you don't want that again, you pop it back. So in and out. Now, while I'm here, I do want to see my wireframe. So one good thing about these is you can see the wireframe, so you can see the polygons on them. So there's a shortcut, which is F4, or I can just right click here and it says default shading, so I can see the shading, and then edge faces, so I can see each edge. Now the default shading is kind of crap, and it's meant to be crap. It's meant to be performance. It's fine now. I only have like, let me see, F7. I only have 960 polygons, but you can get up to millions sometimes depending on the scene you have. So you may want to keep it running properly. So it's not going to render as nice as it would look in a game engine, but it'll be good enough to be like, oh, okay, if I have light, it's going to have a shadow like that. Okay. Um, so that is the basic kind of like camera screen. Your movement, your basic movement is middle mouse button to pan left and right. Let me just make a little sphere for reference again. So middle mouse button, pan left and right. Alt and middle mouse button to rotate around a point. If I'm selecting something, it will rotate around that point. So if I rotate here, it'll rotate around something else, around the center of the grid. But if I select something, let me bring that here, it will rotate around that selected thing. Okay, all right. Otherwise, it rotates around the center of the grid. Okay, so I'll that was scrolling, goes zoom in and out. Is there any other movements you need? No, that's good. You also have a little box here, a little wobbly box. You can also grab that and rotate to do stuff like that. And what's handy about it is mine is tiny, but you should be able to see like front, left, back, right on it. So if I click the top, it'll bring me to the top view. So it's kind of handy. There's a left view, there's my front view, etc. Cool. Now, selecting stuff. Now, there are three different shortcuts that you should remember. I really don't want to see people hitting the button. You can hit the buttons up here, these three here. So move, select and rotate, and scale. You can use those buttons, but I don't want to see people going, move, okay, now I'm going to go to rotate it, and then I'm going to go to move again, and I'm going to move it, and then I'm going to go to scale it. It's really slow, especially when you get further in 3D modeling. You're gonna need to be moving and rotating and scaling quite often. So these shortcuts is really simple. W for move, E for rotate, and R for scale. Do not ask me why R is not rotate. It's not. I don't know why in every 3D modeling software it's WER. So that's a good thing about. Oh yes, you have, yes. So it's exactly the same as Unity. So remember your shortcuts from Unity, because a lot of people don't know that. Those are standardized. One thing that you will get used to is all the 3D modeling software. Some stuff is standardized, some stuff is not. So in 3D modeling, sometimes when you rotate stuff, sorry, the WERs are generally standardized, but stuff like moving the cameras and rotating, they are slightly different sometimes. That's just the life of a 3D artist. You can edit all of them to have the same hotkeys, but I would suggest just basically getting used to swapping between them, which is what most 3D modelers do. Okay, so is that all okay so far? Okay, so we're gonna create something, and I just want to create something really basic. Oh, sugar. Before that, we need to make sure that everything in my Max is already set up. Yours may not be, so we need to make sure everything is set up correctly for import into Unity. So there's a few things we need to do. So first thing I'm going to do is toggle the Scene Explorer here. That's this button, toggle Scene Explorer. That just shows me everything that's in the scene, which gives me a good idea if I make something. Oh look, it shows up there. Oh look, it shows up there. Okay, I can select them from here as well. I don't have to individually select them in the scene. But it also lets me keep track of stuff. So it will keep track of stuff even if it's 100 miles away. It'll show up in the scene view there. Oh no, that's not what I wanted. Give me. Okay, so that is the Scene Explorer. Now we need to set up. Now this hopefully you should only need to do it once. So we're going to customize. We're going to go to Unit Setup. First thing we want to do is make sure we're in metric. This is a 3D modeling software developed in the US, so they may put you onto US standard. We are metric people, and Unity and Unreal will both take metric. So that's the first thing. Lighting units, all the other stuff you can leave as normal. It is international. And then we're going to go to system unit setup. This is important as well. So we need to make sure one unit, I think by default it puts it to inches. So you need to make sure that's 1 meter. They just hit OK on both of those. So when you went to customize, you went to unit setup. System unit setup is a button right at the top. I like how we have a video call and no one's in the videos. Mine isn't even working, I don't get it. Okay. Again, if any problems, just ping. Hey Kian, mine isn't working, so. Alright, so when this is set up correctly, what should happen if I make a box, for example, and I say this box is 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter, when I bring that to Unity, it should come in as a Unity box scale of 111 as well. So it should be a 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter box in Unity. So the other thing I might want to do here is, because my grid, because I've set everything to 1 meter, if you look at this, my 1 meter is very small according when compared to my grid. Sorry, so my grid seems to be using 10 meters, I think. So the way I'll do that is this kind of magnet button here. Oh, sorry, this magnet button here. That's a snaps toggle. If you right click on that, it gives you snap options, home grid options, user grid options. And we're going to go to home grid, and it is, yeah, grid spacing every 10 meters. Let's make that grid spacing every 1 meter. And then you can close. And there we go. So now that box should fit into one of these little squares. So that just makes it easier, so I know my grid is based on a meter scale. So if I have 4 boxes wide, that's 4 meters, and that helps a lot for scaling for in game. In general, let's say if I take a player character, it usually has a boundary of 1 meter base and 2 meter high in general. So that can help you when you're, modeling a chair, modeling doorways, or whatever it is. You know that it needs to fit a 2 by 1 meter and some extra space for, just movement space. Cool. So let's go to creation. So on the right hand side here, you'll see a bunch of different tabs. So we're going to go with the basic tab, which is the plus sign, which is the create. So your create tool, standard primitives should be there by default. There are loads of other different options, but for today, I think we're going to stick with just the standard primitives. And standard primitives are just basically the basic shapes. So box, sphere, cylinder, torus, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to make a sphere just for now, just to mess around with. If I want to snap the sphere directly to the center of my grid, I can turn on snaps. There's a shortcut, which is S. If I turn that on, if I right click on it, make sure it is snapping to grid points. And you can see now it's going to snap to the grid. So I can snap to the center and draw from there. And now it is snapped. Cool. So if I want the radius to be like 4 meters wide because I'm snapping to it, this is exactly 4 meters wide. Or it should be. Diameter 4 meters wide, not the radius. Okay, cool. So that's a 1 meter. Yeah, 1 meter radius. And then I can turn off snaps by hitting S or pressing the button again. Cool. So you have a sphere. Should be able to rotate around it. Should be able to move it. You see where when I go to move, this is called the pivot point. This point where it's selecting from. It's kind of like the origin point. And that's really important. So if right now I bring this directly into Unity and place it on the ground, it's going to appear in the ground halfway embedded in the ground because the origin point is in the center of this sphere. So if I want the origin point to be somewhere different, if I want the ball to be floating above the ground, for example, I may go to this button, which is here, the middle one, affect pivot only. And now I can move the pivot point. So when I spawn this, turn off that, it will now spawn on the ground. Okay, so that's where its pivot point is. Unity will also take that origin point and use physics calculations on it. So if I was actually using a sphere, I probably would want to leave it in the center. Okay, so that's really important. So sometimes people model like a character and the origin point is like somewhere in the belly button. They bring it into Unity and it's like its legs are halfway down into the ground because of the origin point. Like you can change it, but it does make things complicated. Right, so we want to edit this, right? This is not going to be part of our chess. This is just getting to grips with 3ds Max. So we're going to edit it in here. This is your modifier panel. And this is where 3ds Max is powerful. Loads of studios use loads of different tools and software to do different things. In general, Max is very good at low poly modeling and poly modeling in general. Maya is better, slightly better for animation and maybe organic modeling. Stuff like ZBrush and Mudbox, that'll be for high poly modeling. So for here, why 3ds Max is powerful is you have this thing called modifiers. And modifiers allow me to stack stuff on top of each other, similar to if anyone uses Photoshop a lot, it's like adjustment layers. So everything on top of a layer will affect everything below it. So first of all, on a modifier, I can change name. So I can call this, I don't know what I did. If you ever get lost like this, you can hit a Z and that will zoom. If you select something, it'll zoom back into it. Also, orthographic view, you can change it here to perspective view. I don't know what I pressed, but anyway. Cool. That's renamed it. So you can see I renamed it here and it renames here as well. I can also rename it here. It's now called test sphere. And my modifier list here, it is a sphere. Oh, I need to turn on my, there we go. You can see the sphere part of the modifier. So this is where I created the sphere. The radius I can control here. I can change the amount of segments. So let me drop it down a little just to mess with it. If I want it to be a hemisphere, I can. So I can make it like a little dome shape. This is just like the basic primitive allowances. Now this doesn't allow me to do anything more. Now I can use like the squash to squish it, or scale it, or stretch it. So I can do that, and I can rotate it, but I can't actually change the basic shape of the sphere. It is still a sphere, really, overall. So if I want to actually do that, I want to edit it, I need to put on a edit poly modifier. So if I click on the modifier list, there's tons of modifiers, but we're going to go through like the basic ones. We probably wouldn't use all of these. So I'm going to use a edit poly modifier, and that goes over the sphere, and that means I can edit stuff. So let me just do something real quick and show you why 3ds Max is useful. Turn off the snaps. So if I do that, and then I don't like what I do, you can always turn this off, and whatever's below is still there. So that's kind of useful. So a lot of the times you'll see people stack stuff on it, so you'll do stuff on different layers, and then if you make a mistake on the upper layer, you can just delete it, and you still have your work from previous. So that is quite useful and important. Okay, so edit polys here, and when you're on edit poly, you have those vertices, edges, borders, polygons, and this is a whole element. So in this case, I only have one element, but this would allow me to select different elements if I had them. So first one, vertex, you can literally just select stuff and move them, and you can't really rotate a vertex. If you have two of them selected, you can. You can't really rotate one of them though. You can not really scale a vertex either. You can scale groups of vertices, so if I grab them, I can scale all of these, and I can rotate all of these. So groups of them can be rotated together. These are edges, so if I want to grab these, if you hold control, you can select more than one and move them out. And there we go. We make a crappy UFO. So another method of selecting, like if I know I'm going to select all the way around in an edge loop, and again, this is why hello? That's weird. My mic just ran out of battery, I think. Well, let me know if it happens again. I'll turn it back on. I don't know. Anyway, did you get any of what I was saying? Like the edge, how to select loads of edges? So control was, okay, control is to select individual ones. If I have one selected, if I hold shift, that'll keep selecting in an edge loop. So if I have a whole bunch of edges, if I, oh come on, it's kind of finicky. It literally just did it. There we go. That was really, I don't know why that was so awkward. Okay, so it just selects all of them at the same time. And then with all of these, you can always hold control to keep selecting more. If you do a drag, my voice may be a little far. I'm having to charge the mic while talking. So if you hold control, you can add more stuff by selection. You see a little square box. And if you accidentally select too much, if you hold Alt, you can also deselect. So Alt will deselect. Cool. And then we got borders. Borders will select nothing right now because I don't have a hole. So borders will only select if I have a hole. Let me grab some polygons. Let me select these bottom ones. Let me just hit delete. And then I can select borders. Now I can select the border. And I can scale that if I want to. With all of these, what I can also do is copy stuff. So if I hold shift, I will copy this border, but I will also link it to the border before, and I can scale while holding shift. Yeah, I'm basically kind of extruding right now. So that is just holding shift on the border. And if I want to finish this hole, I can just cap it. Boop. And now I have one of those polygons I was saying that you shouldn't really have. That's a non-quad polygon. Again, nowadays it doesn't really matter that much. But just to make sure we know what to do, if I select that polygon face, I can go down to edit geometry. There should be a tessellate here. With any of these options, you can either hit the tessellate to get the default, whatever 3ds Max default is, or your last settings were, or you can hit the little square. Whenever you see a little square beside a word, that little square will give you individual settings. So now I can change whether it's going to go from the edge of the polygon. So you can see basically I'm making tries now, or I can make quads. Come on, give me edge. So now it's quads because each one has 1, 2, 3, 4. It just depends what you want. In this case, I'm actually going to go tries. Cool. And then what was the last one? Oh yeah, elements. So let's say I want a little. Let me just grab this little part of the UFO. I'm going to make a little cockpit on the top. Grab that. And now I can either clone it to a completely separate object, or I can clone it to an element. I just held shift there and moved it with shift. I'm going to clone to an element, so it's part of the same object. Then let me scale this smaller. Boop, boop, boop. And it is now a little cockpit, so that's a different element. So this is one of the reasons why you may want to use elements. So they're like little pieces on your model. Okay, it's not really UFO, it's turned into a pagoda thing. Right, so I'll give you all like 5-10 minutes to try and mess around with that. I just want to get used to the tools, and then we'll go to make our actual box. Oh, like the lines? So it's either F4, or if you right click here, you should be able to turn on edge faces. Y'all want a bit more time messing around, or should we make this great? Yeah, like I think it is important to mess around with stuff for a while. Oh, okay. While we're here, actually, a couple important things. Let me make a little hole here. If I make a hole, this looks fine. Let's say I wanted to make a model. I'm like, ooh, this UFO will come down, and then there'll be a little door here, and it'll come up here. This won't work. If you go into any 3D modeling program, let me do a quick render and show you. This is just like nothing. So polygons are one-faced. They only face outwards. They do not face inwards. So if I delete it, you think you're looking into the inner structure of this thing, but when you bring it to a game engine, it'll render as if there's nothing there. See? So it's like invisible from the backside. And this is like a optimization technique. You can make materials that are double-sided, so there are ways around this. But just so you know, by default, it is only a single-sided shape. Let's also do some smoothing groups while we're here, just so you know what they are. So if I select a bunch, if I, again, remember holding shift will allow me to keep it select in a ring. I'm just gonna pull out my, there we go, so I can see more stuff as well. So I can do, you can see it right here, polygon smoothing group. I can set all of these. They're right now they're not smooth. If I turn off the wireframe, you can see the edges between them. So if I select all of them and I set them all to the same smoothing group, it doesn't matter which number, 2, they are now all smooth with each other. They're all sharing the same smoothing group. So again, similar to here, these are sharing the same smoothing group. That's why they don't look like there's a crease here. I may actually want a crease to be there. They all seem to be on 1. So let me select all of these. I'll turn off 1. I'll set them to, let's say, 3. So now they actually have a crease there. So that's smoothing groups. Again, kind of an old school way of modeling, but it is useful. It's a UFO, Donica. Let's see, is there anything else you need to know? So you can extrude stuff. You can, if you have two things of the same shape, I should be able to do this. So if I have two holes at the same polygon count, I should be able to bridge these. It creates like a bridge between them. And if I change the bridge options, I can twist it. So like all of these will have different options. You can add segments. Where's the twist? I have extrude. So if I select one of these, I can extrude. If you click on extrude, you can just click and drag and you can see it extrude stuff. Or you can bevel. Bevel will do like a little extrude, and then when you let go, it'll have this where you can bevel, and then you click again to apply it. You can have inset, and an inset will literally just like, make a smaller version side, which is useful for, let's say I want to make a mirror or something. I can do an inset and then I'll extrude in, and now I have like a little mirror or a window. Okay, so these tools are quite important on the polygon modifier. Yeah, but ProBuilder is very good for making level, like basic levels. I will say, I will way rather use ProBuilder in Unity to test a level or white box a level than make it in Max and import it to Unity. Was that a question by someone there, or did I? Okay. That's nice, I guess. Let's see. Let's show you self selection as well. So this may not be useful for a while, but if you can do a self select. Let me grab a vertex. It's more obvious on a vertex. So if I select one vertex, the fall off. Let me drop that down. There you go. Can you see that heat map? So it basically controls how much that one vertex movement will affect the vertices around it. So if I move that, you see it's like grabbing everything with it. So that's a soft selection, which again can be useful, especially when you're dealing with really high poly models. You don't want to grab every vertex and move them individually. You kind of want to do a soft selection there. And then the fall off controls how far you affect other vertices, so that's a much less fall off. And then this pinch and bubble controls how you interact them. So if I do that, that means it'll kind of do, yeah, it'll follow that shape. You see that shape here that's being shown? So it'll try and follow that shape, depending on how I control the pinch and the bubble. And then you turn off self-selection. That is most of the stuff you may need. We will cover the other stuff as we go along. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else you need before we move. I think that is good. So for today, I think that should be okay. So if you really want to save your test here, you can. You can just hide it. I'm going to delete mine. You can hide stuff just by hitting the little eye icon here. Now it's gone. But I'll delete mine. So we're going to make this Zelda crate, okay? So first thing I want to do is I want to get references. Boo. To make sure I know what I'm modeling. Why is it so hard to find the crate? Oh, shut up. Okay, there we go. Okay, much easier. Oh look, this someone's probably has made it already as well. Um, Thank you. Yeah. Oh, cool. Can you see it? No, you can't. Sometimes what's really good, especially for the more complex models, when you go to search for them, um, you can sometimes find a whole 3D model that someone's made, which is really good for reference. Here's someone made that. The other thing I like to do is Sketchfab. So if you're interested, I'm Sketchfab Firewater Sun, the same as my Discord name. I have a collection, and the collection is DT508 stuff. So this is all last year's stuff. But what's really useful as well, in Sketchfab, you can search for models. Zelda chests, let's see. Pretty much. But what's great about them is you usually are able to see what they look like in 3D. And if you go down here, model inspector, I can do wireframe, and that shows me how they made it. I'm like, oh, cool. We're not going to make it as complicated as this, don't worry. We're going to do a much simpler version. But this, you can see how other people made their models. So it's really useful. You can even check like the base color. Oh, here's the albedo. Here's the metalness. Okay. Here's the roughness. Here's the normal map. And you can see how they did it. I think you can go to, can you do 3D, 2D? I don't know why. Sometimes it doesn't allow it. Sometimes it does. I think it depends on the model. Sometimes you can see like the 2D, the actual material of the map. I don't know where that is. UV checker. No, that's not what I want. Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna do that for the next model we do. But yeah, you can do the same. Yeah, yeah, you absolutely can. So this is going to be a very simple model today. The reason I chose a chest is because it can be built very easily out of primitives. We will choose something more complicated for the next time. And for whatever that is, we'll use splines, we'll use reference images, stuff like that. Okay, so for today, I'm going to start with the chest. As I said before, let me just turn on snaps. I'm assuming that Mr. Link is a 2x1 height. Okay, so this is Link. Meaning, whatever chest I create should relatively scale. So, well, he's tiny in it, isn't he? Yeah, so it's a relative. It's quite a large crate. So if he's 2x1, more if he fits in a 2x1 volume, this crate looks like it's probably 2 wide and 2 high and 1 deep. So let me make a box that's 2 wide and 1 high. Oh, let's do, yeah, we'll do 1 high for the bottom of it. Yeah, for now. So I'll just do that. And again, remember the origin point. So I'm going to snap that to the center. Cool. So that's the bottom of the crate. And then I'm going to do the top of the crate. Okay, so let's do the top of the crate. For the top of the crate, I may do a cylinder. Boop-a-doop. I know this was, what was it? It was, radius should be 0.5, so it's 1 meter wide, and then the height should be 2 meters. So that should fit on top of this. The amount of sides, let me drop that down a little bit, just so it's a bit low poly to fit the aesthetic. So now I'm trying to rotate stuff. You see the way you can see the rotation numbers there, and it's very hard to get it perfect, precise. So what I can do is turn on angle snaps here, A, and that allows me to rotate in 5-degree increments. So now I get an exact 90 degrees. Just checking if it fits. Pretty much does. Just going to do this by eye for now. You can use snaps. Okay, let's scale it a tiny bit. Oh, I forgot to say, but it's the same as in Unity. If you hover over one of the axes, it'll only scale in that axis. If you hover over this, it'll scale in both of those axes, and if you hover over the middle, it'll scale in all. And it's the same for all the tools. So if you hover over one of the arrows, it'll only go in one direction. The square will go in two, and if you do the middle, it'll go in all three. Okay, so let's scale that a little bit more. Cool. I'm just eyeballing this. Doesn't have to be perfect. Cool. And let's scale it up so it fits to the end. Because I scaled it and forgot to rescale it back. Coolie. So here's the top and the bottom done. It's going to open, so obviously I can't have the full. So the other thing that you may want to do when you're modeling, I like to do, is I like to separate the pieces. Because you know the way there's like there's half of it hidden here. So let me just separate that up for now. Okay, so these two are two separate objects. So if I add first of all, let me change the name to say chest. And let me also add the edit poly modifier. If I hit attach, I can attach this, and now they're both the same object. So they're two different elements, but if I get out of edit modifier and I select them, they're all chess is one giant object. So if I bring that to Unity, it'll come in as one object with two elements. Cool. So if I go back to edit poly, I'm just going to delete the bottom here. I'm going to delete the sides for now as well, just to get rid of them. Just bridging those edges. And I'm going to cap those little holes. Cool. So if everyone can get to here, that would be great. Let me also cut a hole so there's a hole. There's a hole in the bottom. Is this okay? I'm going to stop here, make sure I'm not going too far. Cool. Alright, try and get to my point. Oh, okay. Before everyone. Shortcut is Control S. We are going to save this. I'm going to save this on the desktop. And let's also, while we're here, make sure our autosave is on, because the worst thing you want to do is lose all your work. So let's go to Customize Preferences. And then we're going to go to Files. Well, actually, in general, we're going to go Scene Undo. Change that to levels 500. That means you can undo 500 times. So this is important. So if I make a mistake like 500 steps ago, I can go all the way back. Ooh. And then if I go to Files, I am going to go to Auto Backup Enable. The number of auto back files 3 is fine, and then backup interval, you can set that to whatever you want. I usually find 5. Let me make that 3. So every 3 minutes it will save a backup file, right? And they're saved here in the they're saved on in Autodesk Autoback. There's like a folder where they're saved. So in case you screw stuff up, it saves every 3 minutes, and we have 500 levels of undo. Then hit OK. Oh geez, I assume so, but I don't know. Yeah, it's in system, it says. Yeah, you should be able to. It says it bases it on a memory, so you allocate a certain amount of memory. I'm just waiting for people to get to my point. Have you? Okay, we're gonna make this one. This is the simpler one. This is the easier version. I was tempted to go fancy, but let's calm down. Let's do a simple chess for now. The basic one. Yeah. Copy and attach. So copy is shift with a fuck off Malwarebytes. Copy is if you click anything and hold shift while you move it, it'll make a copy. Attach is when you have an edit poly, you literally just hit attach here and then select whatever you want to do. He said E. Can I move on, or do you need a bit of time? Just say a bit of time if you need a bit of time. You attach them, and then they become part of the same object. Um, so what I said to Rory, if you select one of the objects, you go to the edit poly and you go to attach. You can just What? Ha, no idea. Can you select it with the edge tool? It might be a leftover edge, is not, no? I don't know what that is. Straight up, I have no idea what that is. Yeah, it probably is a bug. I have no idea what that is. Why can't I find a good image of the Ocarina chest? Surely has to be one. Why? No. Still too early. Yeah, but it's not about you, Danica. It's about me. I need to wake up at 8. That's not. I mean, um, so it is. We only have 25 minutes left. Do you want me to speed through the rest of it and have it recorded and you watch, or yeah? Okay. Right, so let's go over the rest. So this may be slightly complicated, but hopefully I'll try to make sense of it as I go along. So you can see in the box here, there's like an inset here and an inset here. These are meant to be bars, and same on the top. So basically I'm going to inset. You'll see what I'm going to do, hopefully. So I grab this. Essentially what I want to do is inset, ooh, sugar, like that, and I want to extrude in like so. Okay. If I don't want to do, I'm going to want to do that for all sides. Now, instead of doing them individually, each of them, I can be smart about this. Select all of them. Now I can hit inset, the settings. It usually won't allow me to inset all of them together because it insets as a group. But if I change that to polygon, it will inset each one and it can change the amount here. So each individual one is going to be inset by itself. So any word, the little square beside it will always show settings. Any word. So and then the same, I'm going to do the inset. Click the settings. Oh no, sorry, it was already inset that I did. I want extrude. Click the settings. The other way. I want it negative. Extrude. Let's pop it in. Look about there. Hit OK. And job done. I have the bottom of the chest. I also want to do the same with the top. So let me select. So I'm going to inset this. Oh, and I want to do it by group this time. Cool. There we go. And it keeps the same settings that I did for the bottom. So this is going to look like the same as the bottom because it will remember the last setting that I did. So that's cool. OK. And I want to inset the same amount. No, extrude. Sorry, I keep mixing them up. So here's a little bit of a problem. It's extruding straight downward. I want to do by, you can just keep changing it. So I want to do it by local normals. I actually want to extrude a bit less now. I'm just going to remember this 0.08. Yeah, I think that looks better. Cool. And now I have the chest pieces, like so. And let me go look back. So you see these little bars here? I'm going to try and make those bars now. These little like lines. So there seems to be 1, 2, 1, 2. So it's split into 3. So I have them here. I could just extrude these. I'm just trying to think what I will do to make my life easier. Yeah, let's do it that way. So I need 2 bars up here. So what I'm going to do is grab these. And can I do them both at the same time? Maybe it's better if I do them individually. And I will scale that like so to the width of the bar that I want. Do the same for this one. Oh, sorry. Cool. And then I'll grab those. What? Push it talkie. Is that cute? Oh, sorry. Alright, so I'll grab those and then I will do a bevel on them. I actually want to. Will I do a bevel? I'll do a bevel on them. So we get that kind of shape. Cool. Now, I got a problem. On the bottom, I don't have the same as I do up here. I don't have those cuts. So I can just add them. If I click the edges, let me select all these edges, and I should be able to do a connect, which will add a line. You can see that here. And I can add a connect here, and a connect here. Oh no, I don't want to do that. Okay, so I've got the lines. So a connect will give me a line between all of them. I can also do something called a slice plane. Here's a slice plane. When I have that on, you see there's a little slice, and it will slice through whatever I'm selecting. So I want to have one on. This is where I may want to go to orthographic view. So let me line this up. So I can just hit slice. Hang on, are you slicing up here? You're not supposed to be. It should only slice what I'm selecting, but maybe I need to use polygons to slice pane. There we go. Yeah, it should only slice. So now it should only slice in the polygons. Slice plane. Move that here. Slice plane, and keep going. Cool. And I turned that off, and now it's cut through where I selected only the polygons I selected, and it's made all those lines. And the last little bit is, they're a little thin. Let's make them a little thicker. think that's good enough. Cool. So we have our chest. And then the last little bit, see the little rivets here? Let's go and try and make those rivets. I will grab let's make a little sphere for the rivet. I'm going to change back to perspective here. That's P and U, or you can right click up here. So I'm going to make a little sphere here. And because they're really small, I can make them low poly. So let's drop down the segments. So let's grab that, delete that, and this will be one of our rivets. Okay, and then what I can do is copy this rivet over and over to get like all the rest of them. But I'll just show you what that would look like so. And I just keep copying to element. But I actually don't want to do that just yet. I just want to keep one of them there for now. Anyone guess why? So what I want to do is I want to unwrap this to a texture. So that way I only need to unwrap one of these rivets. After I've unwrapped them and have a texture applied, I can then copy that rivet and every other rivet will have the same texture applied to it automatically. So it just saves me a lot of work, as opposed to if I added rivets everywhere now and then went to unwrap it, it might be a little bit of a hassle to do that. Okay, so then finally, ooh, I should have extruded in before I did this. Oh no. Oh no. I've done it bad. Okay. Sure. So here's the I should have made a little inside before I went and added all the fancy outside bits. But I mean, we could just cap it off. Let me just be cheap about this. And I'll just cap that. Cheap. Okay. I will need to connect these as well. Or you can go to connect here. Cool. And there is my model ready for unwrapping. Okay, I will not go into unwrapping today because I think that's a whole other thing that's pretty big. But if people can get to this point by next week, then we can do unwrapping. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, let me make a little. Let's just make a little box for like the lock on the front. It's literally just a box with a key texture on it. So yeah, that'll do for now. Cool. So now I have everything ready to be unwrapped. Anything I need to copy, I'm going to unwrap first and then I'll copy later. And all of this is pretty much good to go. I may also want to mess with the smoothing groups. If you do Shift Q, it'll give you a really quick render. This is like a basic render. It's called a scanline render. Shift Q, and it'll show you sort of what it'll look like in game if you were on very cheap graphics. So you can see I've got some smoothing issues around here, but for now I'm gonna leave. If you want to go for the low poly look, by the way, like super low poly look, just grab everything and clear all the smoothing groups, and that gives you on purpose jagged. Some people may actually want this, so some aesthetics actually prefer this. Any questions? Okay, I'll try and have the video up ASAP, um, and hopefully if you can get to this point by next week, that would be great. If there's any problems, obviously post an asset design, ideally with screenshots or a video so people can see what you're asking, and then I'll try and get to them as soon as I can. Yar. So it definitely individual assets for the first semester. So a good question. This semester you have for me, we're going to do this. We're going to learn unwrapping from this, and then we're going to go to a more complicated model, and we're going to do some substance painting and that. So that's like material painting, direct material painting. This is like how I'm. Hello. I spoke so fast. Okay, so we're doing unwrapping. The next bit we're gonna do is substance painter. So that'll be like material painting. You basically paint on the 3D model directly once it's unwrapped properly. Um, and that will be a more complex model. We will choose that as a class. And after that, you'll have your first assignment. So the assignments we usually have are one is make a usable game asset model that is a building. So like just the outside of a building, a really simple one. So let me see if I can pull up the last year's stuff. Okay. So yeah, so you do like a little house or building. That'll be your first graded assignment. Here's some nice ones from previous years. Then usually what we do is we go to the museum and we find something that we want to model, and these are all museum assets. So these are all built off those. Now, unfortunately, I really don't know if we can do the museum these days. So we'll see what happens from that point. You may have to find like the reason why we go in person to museum is you get like you can get pictures from all around the model and you get a really good viewpoint of the model all the way around, and that gives you really good reference images to make your stuff. And then finally, so that's all museum stuff. Finally, you will do a, see if I have one from last year, like a little game scene. So you'll be using, oh, you'll be using 3D Max to make like assets for a level. How do I turn off the music on this? So yeah, I can, but you probably can't. So basically, you'll have stuff like you see the way this pot is reused. Some of these little books are reused, so you will be smart about creating models. So that's one of the major things game artists have to do is being smart about creating a model that can be reused a lot in a scene. Because creating 100 bespoke models is possible, but takes a lot of time. So oh, when you see the older games, it's so obvious. Like they're so like you have to be a little smart about this. So we have a bit of tips and tricks learned from other people throughout the years. So even stuff like just moving the items away from each other, or rotating them a bit, scaling them a bit. There's all these little tricks you can do to reuse items quite a bit. Um, or like this, where you have the same book, but you rearrange them so it looks like it's actually the same book, but it looks like it's reused. So stuff like that'll be your final assignment for this semester, and then next semester will be, if you pass, will be character modeling, high poly modeling, so much more complicated stuff, and animation. So like you'll do like little animation rigs, and why won't this play? Will this play? Do I have to go into it? So animation rigs and animations and getting them to cycle and to set up in Unity so you can actually use them as a character. And then the final assignment for next semester is a big one. It is a cinematic. So I don't have that here, but you basically create a full sequence of like 5 to 10 seconds, which sounds short, but it's actually a huge project to do. So it's like almost like a cutscene almost. Right. So that is your whole year's assignment. But don't worry too much about assignments yet. We're still trying to get to grips with the software. But once I get you set up, it'll be this chest, and then the next whatever it is we choose. So think of something you want to model, something that's kind of complicated but not too complicated, ideally inorganic. So they've chosen like battle axes or um, like lampposts, stuff like that. Something that's kind of simple but also has a little bit of complexity in it. And then you get your first assignment, which is the house. Cool. Oh yeah, whatever you want. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What you can make your own, or you can reference a house that's already. Ideally, I want something gamey. I don't want like a architect's blueprint of someone's three-bed semi in Kildare. I don't really care, but some. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there is a poly limit for some of them, not for all of them. Again, as I said, it's very forgiving these days, but there will still be like if you send me a house that's like 35 million polygons and is a box, that's a fail. So it's not so much about the amount of polygons as about the use of polygons. So if I have 35 million polygons, but you're giving me an entire jungle with an Aztec temple in the middle, and there's animations going on, and there's statues all over the place, I'll be like, okay, it's 35 mil, but I get why. But if it's about how smart you use those polygons as well. Any other questions before we finish up?